Good morning, fam, and happy Saturday. Our latest will be about the developments in the US in relation to SA government and South Africa as a whole. Let's follow up on that. We woke up to the news that Donald Trump has sanctioned South Africa. He is stopping aid completely to SA on basis that white farmers and Afrikaners in general are being abused in SA. He also offered them immediate refuge status in the US, but most of them are saying they are going nowhere. The white South Africans also called out AfriForum for their misinformation about the situation in SA. As far as we know, no white South African is being abused in SA, and crime affects us all. It's even worse in black areas, as our black nation can afford private security companies to protect them. On the other side, AfriForum is now changing their stance, implying that Donald Trump is misinformed and causing division in SA, but they are the ones that provided him with that information, saying that the white South Africans are being abused. Please listen to all the debates in the next slide and let us know of your thoughts regarding this situation. And that's all we have for now. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you again in the next update. Bye.
Trump just signed an executive order to give refugee status to white people. You can't make this shit up. He signed an executive order today. It's on whitehouse.gov. And it's about South Africa. That's weird. Here's the executive order. He basically says that the government of South Africa is illegally taking land and property from the ethnic minority in South Africa. In case you don't know who that is, he's talking about white people. Now, in his executive order, he talks about how the government of South Africa is dismantling programs that are aimed to create equal opportunity in employment and education and business. Yeah, I couldn't imagine a government that would dismantle programs that would take away the equal opportunity of employment, education, and business. But Donald Trump is very upset that South Africa is doing this, and he signed an executive order giving refugee status to any ethnic minority Afrikaner who the government's taking their shit away, which specifically is happening to white people. Now, there's some very, very important shit to talk about here. The guy who ran his entire campaign on fuck refugees just signed an executive order to make white people refugees. Number two, how does Donald Trump know what's happening in South Africa? In fact, why is America First Donald Trump so concerned about what's happening in South Africa? Oh, I gotta guess the real president is concerned about it. That's why. But thirdly, and most importantly, he literally talks about in this executive order how it is egregious that they are dismantling these programs to create equal opportunity in employment, education, and business, which is the same fucking thing he's doing here. So what does that mean? That means that Donald Trump understands that diversity, equity, and inclusion in America is necessary because of white supremacy, but he don't give a fuck. He also understands that white people in South Africa stole and hoarded resources during apartheid, and the government simply taking stolen shit back, but he don't like that because white supremacy. So this should tell you two things definitively. Number one, President Musk is in charge. And number two, during the campaign when he was talking about immigrants, clearly, as we all said he was only talking about non-white immigrants.
Hey, lovely people, and particularly a quick word to my American friends who might be tempted to believe what Donald Trump is saying about South Africa, my home country, where I happen to be right now. Him and Elon Musk are racist twats who have no fucking idea what they're talking about. Because what they're doing is taking the word of a fringe racist group called AfriForum and other disaffected whites, disgruntled by the end of apartheid, feeling hard done by, and much like the Israelis, victimizing themselves when they are not victims at all, bitching about how land redistribution is racist against whites. These are such ignorant provocateurs, and it's going to backfire on them. South Africans' majority, the black majority, and it's a multiracial, multi-tribal society now, only own a tiny proportion of the land versus the size of their population. And while white South Africans make up 7% of the population, more or less, they own about 70% of the decent land. And so the redistribution of land is to address past inequities, and the vast majority of South Africans agree and understand why that's happening and that it's a good thing. It's also under a very strict mechanism. Now, not everyone agrees, of course, with the mechanism, but the principle is what racists like Musk and Trump are railing against here on behalf of a bunch of assholes who equate equality with oppression, because for so many years, decades and decades of the apartheid era, they were the oppressor. And as we know, whenever the oppressor looks at something like equality, it suddenly becomes oppression of him. So fuck Elon Musk, fuck these idiots from AfriForum. You probably know nothing about them, but this is a bunch of, the equivalent of your kind of Proud Boys hanging on to some past that never actually existed. And a past in which the vast majority of people in this country were oppressed, suppressed, and treated much like, fortunately not quite as badly as the Israelis treat the Palestinians. So this whole railing against South Africa, I'm going to add one more point. South Africans on the whole, all of us, white, black, Indian, colored, which is not a term, is a specific term for those of you who might get offended by that, a specific racial group. We are very, very resilient people. As a country, we have gone through a great deal, both in terms of the early part and then the transition from the apartheid era to genuine multicultural democracy. And whatever Trump throws at us, we can handle. We can handle it because we've been through far, far worse in our history. And my hope is that South Africans all turn around with one voice and tell Trump to fuck off with his sanctions and his fucking withdrawal of aid and his tariffs and all of this stuff, because we can live through it. What I'm not sure about is whether Americans can, because for the most part, all the stuff that Vivek Ramaswamy said recently about Americans being soft, not prepared to put in the hard graft, and all this stuff, I tell you, for the experience of most foreigners is true. And it's not true of every American I know. Some of them are the most hardworking, wonderful people in the world. But as a general principle, South Africans are far more resilient and able to withstand this kind of bullshit authoritarian pressure than any American population. So to my fellow South Africans, let's stick this out. Let's stick up the middle finger to Trump and particularly to Elon Musk, because we know from his background that he left South Africa in the apartheid era and retains the racist bullshit that's motivating these people like Creel. And now that I'm in South Africa, I'm seeing their awesome, ridiculous tweets. Fuck those guys as well. They're the past. Most of us are the future, and it's a beautiful future.
It's a hot day in South Africa, and Donald Trump has just come on air to say that he has seen the terrible things going on in South Africa. I live here, and I haven't really seen the terrible things he speaks about. I'm continually amazed at the disinformation that this man sends. I'm amazed that anyone would believe him. We in South Africa are laughing. We honestly are. But what worries me most is that you Americans seem to believe him. Even statements about your own country, you believe that he's doing the best thing. I feel very sad for you and very down. I hope you can get this man out one way or the other. Goodbye.
I think AfriForum is a clear indication that arrogance makes you dumb, because they are going from one news network to the next news network admitting that they are going to approach a foreign power, so another country's government, to target a elected government to influence domestic policy. Question for AfriForum. Give us the definition of treason. Let me show you. Treason under South African law, as defined by the Riotous Assemblies Act 17 of 1956, among other statutes, includes acts like attempting to overthrow the government by force or violence, assisting any enemy of war with the Republic of South Africa, instigating foreign intervention in internal affairs with intentions to harm the state. But the one thing I wanted to highlight, people need to recognize AfriForum represents 315,000 paying members. They do not represent all white South Africans. They do not even represent all white Afrikaans-speaking South Africans. So let's just realize that this is an organization that makes money out of their rhetoric, and they do not represent all white South Africans. However, I do think now is the time for white South Africans where who are opposed to what AfriForum is doing to stand up and say something.
Yeah, so you insist, sorry Carly, to cut you in the interest of time, you insist that the current Expropriation Act is deserving of sanctions against politicians, in this case ANC leaders by the United States. So you agree with Donald Trump's assertions that land is being confiscated in our country?
No, of course not. Land is not being confiscated at the moment. Our position has always been that this act allows for compensation, but we hope we can avert this act allows for expropriation without compensation, but this can be averted. That is why we also...
Yeah, so